This conference will now be recorded.
Okay, good afternoon. Today, my topic is about critical limb ischemia. So, what are the topics that will be discussed in critical limb ischemia are? So, what is the introduction and definition of critical limb ischemia and etiology, pathophysiology, symptoms, diagnosis, evaluation, and treatment. So, coming to introduction, critical limb ischemia, also referred to as limb threat, is an advanced stage of peripheral arterial disease. It includes restraint, arterial insufficiency ulcers, and gangrene. The latter two conditions are jointly referred to as the tissue loss, that is arterial insufficient ulcers and gangrene, reflecting the development of the surface damage to the limb tissue due to the most severe stage of ischemia. So critical limb ischemia has negative prognosis within a year after the initial diagnosis. Within 1 year of amputation rates of approximately 12% and mortality rate of 50% and 70% at 10 years. So what is the definition? It is a term for severe blockage of arteries of the legs leading to reduction of blood flow. So a grave disease of peripheral arterial disease. A chronic critical limb ischemia is defined by either the two of the following criteria, that is recurrent ischemic chest pain that persists for greater than 2 weeks and requires regular analgesia with an ankle systolic pressure of 50 mm Hg or less and a toe systolic pressure of 30 mm Hg or less. So we take the systolic pressure of the lower limbs. So that is 50 and 30. Ulceration of gangrene of the foot or toes with similar hemodynamic parameters. So this is the, in general, discoloration, gangrenous changes, necrosis, and the discoloration of the toenail. You can see in the first diagrammatic representation, and in the second diagrammatic representation, you can see the all the 4 limbs, 4 toes, and the greater toe is reddish discoloration is present with the blackish discoloration of the sole, and the third picture it depicts the complete auto amputation also. The greater toe is auto amputated, and that is the, and in the fifth one you can see over the palm also you can see blackish discoloration with necrotic changes. So what is the etiology? Atherosclerosis, thromboangiitis obliterans, vasculitis, arterial trauma, popliteal artery entrapment, and cystic advential disease of the popliteal artery. So the risk factors in male gender more common due to smoking, and age-wise in second to third decade of life it is the most common, and in diabetes also it is a higher risk, that is greater than in third to fourth decade. And smoking it is also most commonly seen. It causes the critical limb ischemia, and hypertension it is comparatively less, and dyslipidemia is also comparatively less. Hyperhomocystinemia it is also causes the critical limb ischemia. When races, it is most common in white race than black race, and C-reactive protein is raised in case of critical limb ischemia. So if there is any renal insufficiency, that is renal artery stenosis also may be present. And hemodynamic consideration in the ischemic leg. It is significant obstruction within a major limb artery results in a drop in perfusion pressure and distal to the obstruction and increase in the total peripheral resistance that reduces limb blood flow. Collateral vessels develop from the distributing branches of the large and medium sized artery. So this collateral develops divided into stem artery, midzone artery, and re-entry arteries. That is from the arising from the original basic artery is the stem artery, and present in the middle between the collapsed structure, collapsed vessel, that is the midzone artery, and again they are the re-entry arteries that is arriving again back into the original arteries. So they are divided into 3 zones. Now what is the pathophysiology? So exhaustion or defective compensatory mechanism, that is capillary spotting or arteriogenesis, that leads to inadequate perfusion of the skin and subcutaneous tissue. So if there is any defect in the mechanisms, or if there is defect in the capillary system. If there is any blockage in the capillary system or stenosis of the capillary system, then there will be inadequate perfusion of the skin and the subcutaneous tissue. That is, decrease in oxygen supply and decrease in the hemoglobin level to the skin tissue and subcutaneous tissue. This causes dysfunctioning of the endothelium. The normal function of the endothelium is protection and the maintaining of the perfusion. So there will be dysfunction of the endothelial system, causing chronic inflammation. That is, the accumulated blood products and accumulation of the leukocytes, neutrophils, monocytes, and macrophages, and chronic accumulation causes inflammation. And there will be the hemoglobin products which are not good for the muscle. They cause damage in the lysis of the muscle. So it causes chest pain and chronic non-healing wound, and that leads to gangrene. So this is the main basic pathophysiology. The ultimate sequence of the events in chronic limb ischemia, critical limb ischemia, is collapse of the precapillary arterioles because of low transmural pressures, arteriolar vasospasm, abnormal vasomotor, microthrombosis, capillary effusion caused by the endothelial cells, swelling and platelet aggregation, rigid adhesive leukocytes, rigid blood cells or blood cell platelet aggregates, and local activation of the immune system. So, what are the clinical features? That is chest pain, which is continuous burning pain in the lower leg of the feet, aggravated on elevating or reclining the limb, and relieved by standing or hanging leg to the side of the bed. So, patient will be always hanging the limb on the side of the bed. So, and he will be continuously waving the leg. If there is any arterial insufficient ulcers over the shin of the or the tibial aspect of the leg, and there will be gangrenous changes. The skin over the legs will be shiny, smooth, and dry, and there will be thickening of the toenails and absence of diminished pulse in the affected leg. So gangrenous, what is gangrenous changes? The microscopic death of the tissue you may be learning in general basic, that is SRP also. So clinically there are two types, that is dry gangrene and wet gangrene are the clinical types. Gas gangrene is also present, but we will be discussing later. So what is dry gangrene? It is dry and desiccated type of gangrene. It spreads slowly and it has line of demarcation which can be localized. So wet gangrene, it is seen in both arterial and venous blockage along with suprarenal infection and putrefaction. So wet gangrene changes are more dangerous than the dry gangrene changes. It spreads faster than proximally, and there will be low line of demarcation. Okay. So clinical classification, Fontaine classification. So stage 1, asymptomatic. Stage 2, a mild claudication. That is, claudication pain is while you walk for a certain amount of distance, the patient will be having limping type of pain followed by rest which relieves the pain. And to be, it is moderate to severe claudication. And the stage 3 is ischemic rest pain, and stage 4 is ulceration of the gangrene. So Rutherford's classification, this is also grading. So grade 0 is asymptomatic, 1 is mild claudication, 2 moderate, 3 is severe claudication, and 4 is ischemic rest pain, 5 is minor tissue loss, and 6 is major tissue loss. So according to the Rutherford classification only, we mainly go for the treatment. So investigations. So what are the objective vascular tests? It is recommended to confirm peripheral arterial disease and critical limb ischemia with objective vascular test, that is ankle brachial pressure index, total brachial pressure index, and TCPO2, PVR, segmental pressure, and imaging technique, that is duplex and angiogram. So what is ankle brachial pressure index? It is the most commonly used test, and it's simple and cheap. And it is also clinically it can be done. Clinically it is used for diagnosis. And patient should be present in supine position and rest the limb for several minutes to allow the limb pressure to return to baseline. Cuff is inflated at the ankle with Doppler probe held at the portion of the distal dorsalis pedis or posterior tibialis artery signals. And systolic pressure is recorded as the pressure in the cuff when the Doppler signal returns. That is, we have known that 50 mm of Hg and 30 mm of Hg, systolic pressure. Okay. This is the pressure recorded in the brachial artery of the arm. That is the Doppler ultrasound. This is the image showing the Doppler imaging. So the see the sounds of the angular blood flow is located at the angle using the Doppler. And the pressure is recorded in the arteries of the angle after each arterial flow in the is located. So clinical correlation of the Damian levels of angular brachial index is generally 1.1 to 0.1 is normal. So 0.5 to 0.15 is intermittent claudication, and 0.26 to minus 0.13 it is ischemic rest pain, and 0.05 to 0.058 is tissue loss. So normal is 1.1 to 0.1 is considered as normal. Okay. Toe brachial index. It is proven to be an excellent option for the diagnosis of peripheral arterial disease in patients at risk for falsely evaluated ankle brachial index value. Toe arteries are smaller and more easy to occlude. Accurate toe pressures requires sensitive techniques such as laser Doppler. Transcutaneous oxygen measures the local oxygen tension to the skin and deriving the local capillary blood perfusion. Predicts wound healing potential, helps define degree of small vessels disease, accurately determines amputation level, monitors efficacy of the patient ongoing therapy, and establishes the candidates for severe treatment. So auto segmental pressures. These are similar to toe and ankle pressure, but different positioning of the cuffs. Their placing of the cuffs differs the segmental pressures. So provide an initial indication of anatomical location of occlusive lesions, often replaced with imaging techniques, often combined with segmental pulse volume recording. So these are the different position of the BP cuffs placed for the segmental pressure location. So at the site of the common iliac, right iliac and left iliac distribution, and at the site of the popliteal, at site of dorsalis pedis, and at the site of the toe. Okay. Doppler signals. The normal Doppler signal is triphasic. As genes progress, it changes to biphasic and then to monophasic. So triphasic, biphasic, and monophasic. These are the three words that you have to remember. So Doppler waveform can be recorded when doing ankle brachial index. So monophasic waveform in the phase of normal ankle brachial index indicates peripheral arterial disease. Reflex ultrasound. So identification of the anatomical site of the disease and the hemodynamic consequences. Differentiate stenosis from an occlusion. So it helps in differentiating between the stenosis. Occlusion, there will be presence of any small thrombus or any other lesion, but whereas stenosis, the complete vessel wall is involved. So determining the length of the lesion also. Very helpful in planning arterial insufficiencies, interventions. So angiography, it is a gold standard method to delineate the localization and the nature of the disease. It is an invasive technique, and access is usually via the contralateral common femoral or left brachial artery. Risks of the techniques are groin hematoma, retroperitoneal bleeding, pseudoaneurysm, and arterial dissection. So computerized tomographic angiography, CTA angiogram. So it requires iodinated contrast, requires ionizing radiation, and produce an excellent arterial picture. Magnetic resonance angiography. MRI has actually replaced contrast arteriography for PAD diagnosis and excellent arterial picture. There is no ionizing radiation. So non-iodine based intervention contrast medium rarely causes renal insufficiency or allergic reaction. So 10% of patients cannot utilize MRI because of claustrophobia, pacemaker implantable, and cardiovascular defibrillator and obesity. Gadolinium scan is used in individuals with EGFR less than 60 ml per minute, which has been associated with nephrogenic systemic fibrosis. So evaluation. So what is the evaluation of patients with critical limb ischemia? Patients with critical limb ischemia should undergo expedited evaluation and treatment of factors that are known to increase the risk of amputation. And patients with critical limb ischemia in whom open surgical repair is anticipated should undergo assessment of cardiovascular risk. So whose ankle brachial index is less than 0.4 in a non-diabetic individual, or any individual with known lower extremity PAD should undergo regular inspection of the feet to determine any critical limb ischemic changes. Those are the patients who are at risk. So category C, the feet should be examined directly with shoes and socks removed at regular intervals after successful treatment of chronic limb ischemia. Okay. So what is the other category? The patient with critical limb ischemia and slim breakdown should be referred to as the healthcare providers, and patient at risk for critical limb, that is diabetes, neuropathy, and chronic renal failure infection, who develop acute limb systemic symptoms represent potential vascular emergency and should be assessed immediately and treated by specialist competent in treating vascular disease. Coming to treatment, prevention, primary anywhere, anytime, and prevention is better than cure. So primarily to prevent the wounds, that is before the wounds are caused, we have to find out the risk factors. So secondary is to prevent the atherosclerotic event, that is cessation of the smoking, blood pressure control, hyperlipidemia, so lowering the lipid lowering agents, that is, and antiplatelet agents. So what are the wound care? And if there is any wound, then we have to go for wound care. That is, underlying infection should be treated by antibiotics and regular dressings. If there is any necrotic tissue, then it is to be depleted. And topical therapies with recombinant growth factors and hyperbaric oxygen. Okay. When to confirm the chronic limb ischemia? So, if the candidates for revascularization, then imaging, that is duplex angiography and the MRI and CT angiography is done. So, then revascularization is appropriately done for the patients. So, non-candidates for revascularization, if the patient is having stable pain in any region, then medical treatment is sufficient for him. If he is having any non-tolerable pain and he cannot be revasculated, then he should go for amputation. So, medical therapy. So, treatment of MI. MI is the underlying most common for PAD, and treatment for stroke and dyslipidemic agents we have mentioned earlier, that is statin therapy and gemcitabine, and hypertension, that is beta blockers and ACE inhibitors. Diabetes, we control for oral hypoglycemic agents or insulin therapy, and then proper foot care by providing him in NCR chapels. And if there is any skin lesions and ulcerations, he should be regularly dressed and should be addressed urgently. And the HbA1c should be maintained less than 7%. And chemical sympathectomy, that is lumbar sympathectomy is done. It acts by the producing vasodilatation of the blood vessels of the lower limb. 5 ml of phenol in water is injected beside the bodies of L2, L3, and L4 vertebra. The effect of the drug can be judged immediately by feeling of the warmth in the feet. The patient will be assessed by this change in the temperature in the feet. It helps in healing of ulcer and may improve chest pain, probably by interfering with afferent sensory circuits. So what is the surgical therapy? Revascularization and amputation. First we have to go for the options for revascularization. Then we have to go for amputation. So amputation is done in case of tissue loss with infection, and immediate decision regarding the need of amputation prior to revascularization must be made. Okay. This need for revision is common, lengthy recovery process, and hospital stay. Perioperative mortality is high. So, what are the types of amputation? You know, below-knee amputation, above-knee amputation, race amputation, transfer amputation. Okay. Surgical revascularization. So, subintimal angioplasty, balloon angioplasty, and the stenting and stent graft is done. So, this is the picture of subintimal decanalization, where the canal is catheter is passed into the vessel, and the thrombus is removed, causing recanalization of the canal, causing the blood to flow normally. So, drug-coated balloon angioplasty. This is the picture of drug-coated balloon angioplasty, where PTX is transferred to the arterial surface. Okay. What are the complications? Early and late complications. So, early include dissection of the vessel, rupture of the vessels, cholesterol embolisms are formed, stents which are too long or too short covering vessels are taken off easily. They may slip off easily. So, late complications include migration of the stents from the position placed to the position in the heart, and there may be sometimes stent breakdown, that is breaking down of the dysfunctioning of the stent, and intimal hyperplasia and restenosis. Okay. So, stenting types: self-expandable metallic stents, which are less radial forces, more flexible, and can be dilated gradually, so maybe fewer dissections. and balloon expandable stents, there are stronger hoop distance and more precise deployment. Combined angioplasty stenting in organs may be beneficial. Okay, this is the secretive representation of the stenting in the affected vessel where the thrombus is strong. Okay. So lumbar sympathectomy. This procedure may relieve mild rest pain, help to heal limited area of superficial ganglia. Okay.